Pack your boots, put on your dancing boots. No time to waste. Oh, ready, set, and go. Yay, fire up the show. Oh, ready, set, and go. Let the good times roll.
Here we are, back for Season 3, Episode number 1 of The Same Bet Show. You know, it's been a very busy summer, but the show's never been far from my mind. I've been working on lining up a few people to kick off this season, including our guest tonight. Now, one of the changes this season is that some of the shows are going to be recorded. It's sometimes difficult to schedule a live show at 7 p.m. Central with people on the East or West Coasts. Now, get outside of the continental United States, and you might as well forget it. So some of the shows are going to be recorded like this one, and others are going to be live. Whenever possible, the recorded shows will be set as a premiere, meaning the chat will be live, and I'll be on the chat, but our guest may or may not be available. So I ask for your patience as we go through this transition and bring you another season of The Same Bet Show. Now, tonight's guest is someone you've probably seen on YouTube, both in his own channel and supporting others in his comments. He's known for his soft-spoken videos that focus on making you a better craps player. He digs into the mechanics as he throws the dice for everyone to see, and he's one of the very few people that discuss the cause and effect, the relationship between the grip, the sets, the landing zones on the results of the toss of the dice. He is the one and only Mudslide Mac.
Well, howdy, y'all. It's Mudslide Mac here on the Same Bet program. And looking forward to this. David, take it away.
Yeah, so I am thrilled to have you on this show. You and I have exchanged emails and watched each other's videos for a couple of years now. So we've kind of gotten to know each other a little bit, and I couldn't be more happy to have you here on Season 3, Episode number 1 of The Same Bet Show. So thank you. Thank you for agreeing to come back onto the show.
My pleasure. Thank you, David. And I'm not coming back. This is my first time on the show.
Okay, that's true. You know, I say coming back because you and I have talked a little bit, and so it feels like a coming back. But anyways,
Gotcha.
Here we go. Let's get to know Mudslide Mac. So why don't we start off talking a little bit about your origin story? You know, how did you get started playing the game of craps?
Okay, how did I get started playing the game of craps? It is a really interesting story to me. It may not be all that interesting to others, but I was in college, and I'd just turned 21, and a good friend of mine who was taking a statistics class was using dice to doing homework exercises and on statistics. And while he was doing that, his mother said to him, "Oh, dice, yeah, you ever play craps?" And he said, "No." And he was, "Oh, hey, I've got a great book. You might want to read that. It's a really fun game." So she gave him this book by a guy named Goodman. It was a bestseller at the time, and it was called How to Win. And it was all about casino gambling, and it had a pretty good section in it on craps. So my friend was, read through the book, and he found that was way more interesting than just his statistics homework. But he said, this game is really kind of fun, and it's based on statistics. And so he started talking to me about it, and his mother told him some of the basics about how the game is played and the sort of bets you would make and how much fun it is at the casinos and stuff. And I'll fill that in for you in a second. So basically, I got a copy of the book. We both started reading the section on craps, and we just took a box top from maybe like an old Monopoly game or something and drew a layout on it and paradise out of that Monopoly game. And we just started practicing with pennies and nickels and dimes and things like that. And we couldn't wait to get to Vegas and try it out. So that's basically how I learned how to play the game. But my friend's mother, the interesting backstory there with her is that she learned the game in Vegas. Her husband, my friend's father, worked on the dam out there during the war or prior to the war years. It was, I guess, a works project for the during the Depression or something. Anyway, so she would go out and visit with him, and they would go to the casino, and she liked the slot machines. And he said, no. You don't want to play slot machines. You want to play this game over here. And he introduced her to craps. She introduced my friend my friend and I to craps, and gosh, she would go with us when we first started playing, and she was a kick.
You know that's actually quite interesting. You don't hear a lot of stories where I was introduced to craps by my mom. It's
Yeah,
usually
yeah,
usually a degenerate friend or something that got you to play the
exactly.
game and things like that. But your
Yeah,
mom or your friend's mom getting you involved, that's something else. But
yeah.
so what about the name Mudslide Mac? Where did that come from?
Okay, well, Mudslide Mac, that name, the name Mudslide came from. Let's see, I had a group of friends that we all grew up together, and let's see, they were all in a garage band. Let's see, a singer, guitar player, bass player, and the guy that did all the recording for him and stuff like that. And I was just kind of the guy that would hang around and help with the equipment and that sort of stuff. But anyway, we all loved rock and roll music from the '60s and '70s and into the early '80s, and especially blues music. And so after we had all kind of gone our separate ways, we we're much older now at this point. We kind of started communicating with each other via emails. This is early in the computer age. Gosh, this has to go back maybe close to 20 years now at this point. And anyway, to make a long story short, we like to talk about music and what was going on in our lives. But we decided we had to have blues handles. Okay, so I was Mudslide. One of the other guys was Peach Boy because he lived out in Atlanta, and then we had Big Willie. You can kind of imagine what. And the other guy was Hammer Tone and stuff like that. So that's where Mudslide came from.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So a lot of times here in this with this game, we hear uh, craps related nicknames, and I thought somehow this was probably craps related. I had no idea. The roots go back to a musical background. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. I threw the Mac in at the end to kind of uh, uh, reference Dice Mechanic.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I'm terrible at spelling, and I forgot. I didn't realize at the time that mechanic is not MAC, it's MEC. So
You heard it first here.
yeah,
So we,
yeah.
we have another dice mechanic out there. Now you've actually done a little bit of branding. Down in the lower right hand side of the screen, we see the Mudslide Mac logo. And what I found interesting is that you took it to another level. And I'm going to put this up here on the screen that you had some dice created with your Mudslide Mac logo.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and you were gracious enough to share a pair with me, and I took them to Las Vegas and took a couple of pictures. So you can see here, I set them up on the side of a trash can with Paris back in the background, and then I got a couple of the showgirls to pose with your dice. So I had a little fun playing around with the Mudslide Mac branded dice. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
that's
that. Thank
cool.
you. Thanks for sending me a set of those. I really do
Oh,
appreciate that.
sure. You're welcome. You're welcome. Well,
All right, so
someday they might be for sale, but I pride myself and I don't sell anything to anybody.
well, let me ask this. I assume you got them from Midwest Gaming.
I did, yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, we're hearing rumors that they no longer are going to sell to the public. They're going to
And
go.
I believe that is not a rumor. I believe that's a fact. Yeah.
Yeah, so it
At
might be
least
harder to get casino
that's what I
quality
heard.
dice in the future. Yeah, so hold on to those. You're right; those might
Yeah,
become little nuggets of gold. Uh,
exactly, exactly. Well, offline, maybe we should talk about putting together some kind of gaming supply company because I think they just don't want to sell them retail, but they'll probably sell them wholesale. So
okay, yeah.
who
All right,
knows?
so
Who knows?
so let's continue on that thought of how you learned the game of crap. So you got started with your friend. You've gone to the
Hmm.
casino a few times, but uh, what little I've met you or talked to you about, you're a student. So what other avenues have you pursued to learn the game of craps?
Okay, well, to learn the game itself and how it all works, primarily any sort of, and there's tons of great books out there. I have a couple of them sitting out there on the layout at the moment, but actually one of the best books on it probably is that huge book that's what's his name, Scarney.
Yeah.
I got it over here. Yeah, Scarney on Dice. That book right there is excellent. But just reading books and watching when I would go to the casino, and we would go out during the summer, a couple, 2-3 times, and we'll always stay downtown. It was always the fun and the place to play. But your question really is, how did I learn how to play? It was just by doing, and reading, what are the best sort of betting strategies and things like that, and of course utilizing the statistics and the probabilities and whatnot. So obviously the pass line with odds, come bets with odds versus place bets, that sort of thing. What are all the sucker bets? Ignore everything in the center, that sort of thing. That was the orientation for me early on. And so basically I could play for days with nothing but one pass line bet and one come bet and have a ball, because I didn't really know anything about how to throw the dice or set the dice, but I would just camp. I used to love the hook over by the dealer. That was just a good spot to sort of blend in and just be nobody over there in the corner and just watch the dice come down to the table. And sometimes you were lucky and sometimes you weren't. And
but you talk about being in the hook right by the dealer. I love that spot, especially when I first started playing and I had questions and I didn't really want to scream them across the table to the dealer for help. I'm standing right beside somebody, and I just kind of get his attention and talk to him. And I think my favorite thing about being in that position is when they start muttering under their breath and they're making comments about the shooters and things like that. You hear all sorts of stuff in that hook.
Yeah, it's a fun place to play. It really is. You can have a lot of fun just standing there next to the dealer and watching all the action. A lot of folks say Randy's. That's but all the other people, the chicken feeders, whatever you want to call
chicken
them.
feeders, Randy's,
yeah.
The ones that have fun at the game, the ones that.
Yeah, exactly. the ones that aren't pissed off because they didn't throw 20 times.
Yeah. So you've got a little library over there, and that's something that we have in common. I like reading books about it as well. And when you and I were talking about doing this show, you mentioned an author, and I wanted to bring up a screen. Now, let me start out by saying there are no affiliate links. There's nothing, no sponsorship here. It's just a book that I enjoyed by an author that we've both read, David Madansky. And he wrote a book called The Greatest Craps Guru in the World. And I quoted something from the introduction. This is a story. It's a fictional story of a retired National Football League player who becomes intrigued by the game of craps. He tries to use the successful principles and practices that made him successful in the league in this game, and he gets clobbered. Now, to him, it's not about the money as much as it is about winning. And then he goes on to talk a little bit about the, like I said, a fictional story of how he goes from somebody that focused on winning to focused on fundamentals, and that makes him a winner. So the book talks about some of the best practices in betting and playing the game. It's an easy read. You can find it on Amazon, and it is one of the books that I actually do recommend. It's a fun, like I said, fun, easy read. It's not going to get too deep into strategies, but it also talks about discipline and best practices. So that's my soapbox.
Yeah.
So David Madansky, hopefully you got still a few books from that.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon. You can get it if you have a Kindle or one of those sort of things. You can get it.
Is that book, The Greatest Craps Guru of All Time, is on both of our reading lists for suggested reading.
Yeah, it definitely is. Let me ask you one other question, and I'm going to come off screen real quick. I'm going to grab another book and see if you've read. Didn't mean to turn this into book club, but hey, while we're on the topic, this one is actually one of my favorites, The Mad Professor's Crap Shooting Bible. Have you by any chance read that one?
I have read it cover to cover more than once.
Yeah, there you go. This is the one that I recommend actually the most for people who truly want to get in to the game and understand it in detail with a lot of great best practices, I guess, around the game is probably the best way to put it. But
Yeah, from a standpoint of being a controlled shooter and dice setting, I would agree with you. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So-
and the interesting thing, though, that you have to, with that book, when I first started reading it, and I'm reading the descriptions of, the way that the author was talking about picking up the dice and so on and so forth, I'm going, this seems so unnatural to me because I'm a right-hander, right? And all of a sudden I realized the person writing the book is left-handed.
Yeah.
So they were writing everything from a left-handed perspective. So I will just leave that where it is.
Yeah. So speaking of,
no one knows really who the author is. That Tony Gambino is not the author.
well, it's funny because I was just about to do a segue. Speaking of left-handed dice controllers, Howard Newman. So you recently have taken a class with Howard, and so again, I don't really want to turn this into an infomercial, but he is somebody that both of us have worked with in the past and enjoyed his company and enjoyed learning from him. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with Howard? What was your session like?
Yeah, well, first of all, what a gentleman. There's certain people that you meet in this world that you instantly like them. They're just instantly easy to like and be around. And Howard is definitely that kind of person. And his skill set with tossing dice is phenomenal. It really, really is. It was a lot of fun. And what was really fun about it is I've also had sessions with Beau Parker, the dice coach, and he and Howard, know each other and are friends, and sometimes have taught classes together. So he was really curious. He's, what sort of grips did Beau teach you, and that sort of stuff. And so I was showing him stuff that. Now I don't know whether he was just being nice, but he to me, but he was saying, that's pretty interesting. Let me try that. So after a while, it's like I'm teaching him one of my grips. It was hilarious.
Yeah, not only is Howard a great teacher, he is a student himself, and always experimenting, always trying some new things, and with his students, he loves to share what he's learned. So,
absolutely, yeah.
Howard Howard is one of my go-tos. If we're ever in Vegas together, I make it a point to be able to spend a little bit of time with Howard. All right, so you've learned the game of craps. You just started at a fairly young age, 21, and you've been playing the game for a few years. You've read a few books, you've taken a few classes, but somewhere along the lines, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I think you decided that you were going to start sharing your knowledge, and you've created your own YouTube channel.
Yep.
So one of the things that I really want to point out on your YouTube channel is that you focus on the mechanics of dice. There are very few people out there in YouTube land that talk about what's happening with the physics of your grip and of your toss and of the landing zone, and you dive into that. And so that's one of the things that sets your channel apart. That's what got my attention and the attention of about 450 other people over the years. So if people have not found you on YouTube, go out there right now, search for MUDSLIDE Mac, and take a look at some of his videos. In fact, I'll be putting a link to his channel in the description of this video right here, so you'll be able to find it pretty easily. Now,
cool.
Your YouTube channel, it's going through a bit of a change. You used to have a pretty good sized library of videos, and you've culled it down to about 15 or so, 14, 15 videos. So what's happening with your YouTube channel now?
Yeah, I'm not sure what I want to do in terms of having any sort of consistent presence on YouTube going forward. I always say I'm just an old guy with an iPhone and a pair of dice. I don't have fancy cameras or software to edit and things like that. So and I also just don't have the time to learn how to do all of that. So until that were to happen, I think what I'm going to do is just occasionally I'll throw a little something out there for the few folks that still tune into what I'm doing. or have a question or something like that.
Well, so my personal opinion here is content is king. And in a market that's getting flooded with a lot of videos on YouTube, yours adds value. People can watch your video and walk away with something, a technique or a strategy that they can actually utilize in the casino or in their own practices.
Yeah, that was always my goal, was to just share knowledge, about the game, and primarily about the presetting the dice and throwing in a controlled manner. There's of course the controversy is dice control real? Does it work, and all that sort of thing. And I look at it this way: if you can do it, it works. If you can't do it, it doesn't. And it's really that simple. But if you take the time to understand what presets and dice setting is, and then you take the time to understand the physics and the mechanics of how those two cubes get down to the other end of the table and land and hit the back wall, and how you can influence the results. You can minimize some numbers and maximize others. And that can be debated back and forth, and I know some folks absolutely love to debate that, and I don't really care to debate it. Like I say, I know I can do it, so to me it works.
Yeah,
So, that's simple. But I appreciate what you were saying there, David, and that was always my goal, was to give people who were trying to learn about it or try to understand it some visual content. When I first started studying about dice control and trying to figure out what it was, there was not that much on YouTube. There was a few. I mean, there was the originals. There was Bone Thrower, Dangerous Arm. There was a few other guys that kind of were out there, and they sort of, but Bone Thrower was probably the most famous, and they moved on to other things.
Right.
And I just wanted to give a little bit of my perspective, and when I would see certain things that I thought maybe you could try it a little slightly different, just throw something out there. And a lot of people liked it and were interested, and like, for example, George over there in Cyprus, he and I started chatting back and forth via our YouTube videos and such, and developed a nice friendship. So and you as well, and that's been a lot of fun, but. It's until I can really put out a product that I'm really, really proud of the production of it. I'm just going to sort of slip more into the background.
Well, you and I have a similar origin story for starting the YouTube channels. In fact, my name, Same Bet, it really stemmed from, I wanted to take what I saw on other YouTube channels, Jeremy from Color Up or the Bone Thrower, and do the same bet on my table. Can I make it work like they're showing it on their table? So Same Bet had nothing to do with the betting strategy. It was really, can I take the same bet that they're showing and make it work with my throw? So
Interesting.
So that's my origin story.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, so let's dive a little bit deeper. Let's talk a little bit about some of the dice mechanics that you like to show on your channel. So let's start with maybe a go-to set and a go-to grip. So when you're sitting down to practice, how do you start? What do you do?
Well, nowadays, basically, I'll be working on a particular maybe grip and toss. Because I've really been trying to force myself to learn to be comfortable shooting dice from every place on the table, because you don't always get your strong spot. Your stick left or stick right, depending on whether you're right-handed or left-handed. And so that's what I'll do. So I'll take like a week at stick left, and then I'll go a week at stick right. And then because the end of my table is up against a wall, I can only get to the end over here on this side. So then I'll spend a week on the end. And while I'm doing that, I'll take maybe a strategy, like, for example, you were talking about the craps guru strategy. I'll take maybe that strategy and just play that, nothing else, just do that. And that's what I'm doing lately. If that answers your question.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. Your set. You've talked about using some multiple sets, but what is your starting point when you're at the table, whether it's your practice table or in the casino? Do you always start, let's say, with a hard way or a 3V or cross sixes?
Yeah.
Do you where do you begin?
Generally speaking, I like to start off with a 7-axis set, or what most folks refer to as a hardway set. If you can see, I mean, that right there is a hardway set, but it's a 7-axis set, meaning that the two numbers touching each other or on the axis of those dice are going to equal 7, right? So 6 and 1 and 6 and 1. Or it could be 5 and 2. That is a 7-axis set. And so to me, utilizing that set with however I want to set them and toss them to see what's happening, you quickly, by just looking, can see whether one dice came off axis, whether they both stayed on axis, whether you had a single pitch, double pitch, that sort of thing. And we can talk about how important that is or isn't, but when you get sort of skilled with this and you get comfortable with how that works, you begin to see, okay, maybe throw them a little closer to the wall. So there's a nice single pitch. Throw them a little closer to the wall, throw them a little bit further, throw them lower, throw them higher, that kind of thing. So it helps me kind of just tune in now with how my body mechanics are feeling that day. So that's basically it. I mean, the hardway set gives you, when you understand what what it's doing, you can see quickly at a glance what's happening. Are you double pitching? That sort of thing. And for example, like George, he has really refined his knowledge of sets. So he'll say, I've just thrown, out of 5 times, I've thrown 4 double pitches, so I'm going to switch to a V set now, which I know the double pitch won't hurt me. That sort of thing. And I think that's very, very helpful. But I think the first part of your question was, I'd like to basically decide on a set that I'm going to utilize, especially when I'm going into a casino. Initially, I will stick with the same set probably for the whole day. I may not change it at all, because I want to get that dialed in feeling between my head and my mechanics,
Right.
And
so if you're changing things up, if you're changing landing zones or changing positions around the table, or even changing your grip or your set, you're introducing a new set of variables.
Exactly.
That you have to understand what's happening. There are several schools of thought on that. The if it's not working, change something up. The others say if you're changing something up, you're desperate. You stick with what you know. Your mechanics should come back into line. Make the micro adjustments.
Yeah, now, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with.
And you've got a great practice table there. I've got a practice table at home, and I think that one of the benefits of having some sort of practice rig, it doesn't have to be a full-length table, but some sort of practice rig helps you get comfortable with making those small adjustments.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, gosh, you can really teach yourself a lot about the skill of dice setting and tossing with a cardboard box. Mm-hmm. Really you can. And I threw into a cardboard box for months, and then I said, okay, I'm going to get a small piece of wood, and I bought some felt from a fabric store and that sort of thing. I didn't know you could even buy a craps layout, at a casino supply place. And then I said, gosh, and then I found out, oh wow, I can actually get some diamond rubber. And you just slowly but surely you start building a practice rig, and yeah. But having something like that, and even simple, gosh, one of the things that a lot of people don't talk about it all. I don't see anybody talking about it on YouTube. But what's called a bed toss, just like throwing dice onto a soft surface like the top of a bed.
Yeah.
They obviously are going to just sort of stay, and they're going to either stay on axis and that sort of stuff. But you really learn a lot from that kind of a practice. I've remember reading about actually like throwing it into a little tray of sand, that sort of thing. There's tons and tons of different things you can do, and it's the sky's the limit. But the more you do with that, and the more time you spend on that, the better your knowledge and your understanding of just the basic physics of it all is.
Yeah, I'm going to take this opportunity to give a shout out to a friend of mine. He goes by the name Super Mario. He doesn't have a YouTube channel or anything, but he is a frequent contributor to a lot of our YouTube videos. He doesn't have a practice rig. He practices throwing it onto a couch or throwing it onto a bed, and he is one of the best shooters I have ever met in my entire life. He's consistent. He's strong, and his practice rig is his bed or his couch. So you don't have to have a great table in order to learn some of the mechanics.
No, you don't.
I think this is a great segue into your tagline. Luck's got very little to do with it. And so where did that phrase come from?
Okay, in my younger life, I played a lot of golf, and the last golf bag I had on the little handle, like it was one of those kind of bags you could put over your shoulder like a backpack, and it had a little handle thing on the bottom that you could, just to help you as you're carrying it around stuff. And it was very prominent, especially if the bag was like sitting on a golf cart or something like that. And it said, "Luck's got nothing to do with it." And so I thought that was a pretty cool statement, especially when you're playing golf and things like that. You have a great shot. People go, "Wow, good, wow, lucky shot." And you said, "Nah, luck's got nothing to do with it. It's all skill," that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I just changed that up for because in the game of craps, just generally speaking, in the random game of craps, yes, luck has an awful lot to do with it. The luck of where you are in the variant of probability over infinity is a big factor. But if you've learned how to toss dice in a way that you're minimizing that, now luck has very little to do with it.
I love that. I that's inspiring, and just has that ring of truth to it. So if you're practicing and you're honing in on your craft, luck really does have very little to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
that's what
let's continue that thought about practice. You've talked a little bit about the hardway set. What about the grip? From my conversations with you, I know you use a couple of different grips, but what's your go-to? How do you start your day?
It's the grip is going to depend on what place on the table I'm shooting from. Okay, and that's one of the things that I learned from Howard, is that when you have to get away from your natural spot, or the spot that is your strong spot, you may want to utilize a different sort of a grip, and a different type of toss, and maybe less spin, more spin, that sort of thing. So if I'm starting here at the stick left spot, I will stick with pretty much a traditional par gold touch style, the 3-finger, the typical one you see, everybody doing. But if I'm at stick right, that's uncomfortable for me. I'm like this, going that way. So I've developed kind of a pinch kind of a grip, or like this. It kind of works. But the one that I think is that I like the best from that stick right spot, or sometimes even from stick left, is going at an angle and just shooting towards the corner, the hook, the opposite hook from where you are. And that I find is a particularly good toss from stick right, but it depends a little bit on the table surface. If it's a nice hard table surface or a good neutral bounce table surface, I like that toss a lot. So that basically, I don't know whether you can see me doing this or not, but it would be like that.
Yeah.
And they're, oh, good, I threw a 7. But I didn't even know what the 7 was. But that's okay,
So-
because I was coming. That's a winner on the come out. But yeah, that kind of thing. And then the other type of grip that I've really learned to like a lot for me is what I call a drop toss, where you're basically picking up the dice like this, and then you just kind of I think it's also referred to as inline, but basically you just let it, sort of lobbing them, letting them land as flat as possible, and then roll up to the wall.
But so with that particular toss, you have the dice parallel to you when you're standing, stick left or stick right. But as you launch them towards the back wall, you're twisting your wrists, so it's parallel to the back wall, right?
Actually, I'm trying not to twist the wrist. I'm trying to have the arm.
Arm, okay.
Yeah. And then you're just dropping them. That's why I call
Gotcha.
it a drop.
Gotcha.
So it's the momentum of the arm moving forward. That can be a little tough on your shoulder. I've noticed that if I practice it too much, and maybe it's just because I'm an old dude, but my shoulder will get sore. So I have to be careful with that one.
All right, so we've talked a little bit about grips. We've talked a little bit about, your preferred set, and that you will shoot from different areas of the table, and you'll make adjustments to those grips and sets accordingly. So one of the other things that I really enjoyed from your videos in the past, and it's not up there today, is that you've used some household items to help you hone in on your skills. And my favorite one is you had a laser pointer. And
Yes.
you and I talked about that, and I'd like to see if you could put that. Oh, there you go. You've got it right there.
Here it is.
To put that back up. I think that's a real eye opener to how accurate you are in sending the dice down to the other end of the table.
Yeah, can you see the laser?
Yes.
Okay. So you basically set this up behind where you're going to be throwing, and I like to just get it so that it's on the pass line or the don't pass, and then I'll put it in the set so we know whether I did anything right or not. And then I try to see how. I can also put a little target on the layout too if I want to. I try to see, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And especially if something's going wrong or you've been away from your practice for a while, that kind of stuff. Sometimes this is good to really just get you zoned in.
Well, that and when you're experimenting with some different tosses, maybe you're doing an underhand toss or the inline toss, a drop shot. All of those require learning new muscle memory. And
Correct.
This laser pointer is also a great tool to help you know, are you going a little left or a little to the right, or are you straight on? So it's I think this is a fun way to improve your skills by using an average household item.
Yeah.
So do you have any other tools like that you like to use?
Yeah, one other, and I haven't used it much lately, but take like a box, any kind of like a box, and put like where did I learn this from? I think it was Dangerous Arm. I saw this on his channel. He had a cup or different sort of glasses, like in different size glasses, and he would try to get down to the smallest one and land the dice in it. So basically, you put it down here where you want the dice to land, and then you get, like, I don't know, 6 or 7 pairs of dice, and you try to get them in that box. And, and all of a sudden you realize, wow, my aim isn't anywhere near as good as I thought it was. But after a little bit of time, you start adding up how many of them did I get into the box, that kind of thing. Make a little game out of it.
Yeah. I think most of the viewers are familiar with the Hawaiian crapshooters, Mr. Money Shot. When he first started his channel, he threw out a challenge to those of us in the YouTube community where it was a similar exercise, some sort of bowl or dish or something to capture the dice. And how many are you going to get in in the target, in the zone. And I emailed him and I said, I'm not doing that. I'm not that good. I'm going to look like I don't know what I'm doing. Because it's harder than you might think. But it is a great exercise to dial in on your skills.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. And one thing that you can do to make it a little bit easier is just stand closer. And
yes.
Then,
that actually, in our book, the Mad Professor's Crap Shooter Bible, that's one of the skills that he talks about. Is you start maybe 2 feet away from your bucket, and you do that, and then you gradually move back until you're at stick left one or stick right one, whatever it might be. So start very close to it and gradually move away, and that will help build that accuracy.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so there's one more category that I wanted to talk a little bit about before we wrap things up, and that's betting strategies. So can you tell us a little bit about what your style is for betting?
Well, like I was saying, I mean, I learned early. I mean, I learned the game of craps by being a pass line and come bet guy, and I still pretty much stick to that strategy. I think those are the higher probability sort of bets and lower house edge, that kind of thing. But I'm kind of experimenting around a little bit now with hedging strategies where you have. I think this is the big thing that like Tony Leo talks about a lot is having the opportunity to get a win on every toss by having certain combinations of bets out there. So like utilizing the field. Or horn bets along with box numbers, things of that nature. But with a strategy like that, I think it's really, really key to have a point where you're going to regress or take all that down, because basically, and this is what I think the Greatest Craps Guru book really focuses in on, and what I learned from reading that book was that this game is going. The longer you stand out there at a crap table, I don't care how good of a shooter you are. The longer you do it, the greater the chances that the casino is going to get your money out of your pocket.
Right.
So you want to develop strategies and techniques that you get some of their money in your pocket, and then you take down what you put out there in order to win that. It's kind of similar to sort of investing. You may need to put a certain amount of money in the bank to earn a certain amount of interest, or make a certain investment of a certain amount of money to get a certain amount of return. And then once you get that return, you want to then take that money that earned that return and lock it back up again where it's safe, and then maybe you put it back out again. So it's to me, I think betting right now has all become more of a how much of this am I going to keep, and how much am I going to leave on the table when the 7 finally shows.
Yeah, we see a lot of pictures of big, large wins in Facebook, in some of the forums. But that's not the normal. When those big long rolls come up and people can power press, great, more power to you. But on the average, trip to the casino, personally, I have a small goal in mind. And I'm pretty disciplined about that. In fact, my friends will tease me quite a bit about walking away, but I will walk away a winner more often than not. It's just a small win, and that goes back to some of the principles that's taught here in the Greatest Craps Guru book. So you can teach an old dog some new tricks, and that's my style of play. I like to grind out a small win, and I'm disciplined enough to leave the table when I get to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's to me the whole game of craps, casino craps, is designed to just grind money out of whoever's playing, 24/7, as long as that table is working. So that's the way the casino has designed it. You have to understand that, and I think you just employ some of your own grind on the back at them, and that is, it's a tremendously fun game, and the adrenaline rush of having a lot of money on the table and having a couple of big hits is fantastic. I'm not going to dispute that, but in the long run, you want to come home from your trip to the casino with more money in your pocket than what you started. Or even, you don't really want to make a whole bunch of money and then give it back. So
Exactly. So one last question on betting strategies. What about other players? Do you bet the same way on other players that you do on yourself?
no, not really. Unless I know who the other player is, and even then, sometimes that doesn't work out. But no, I try to. And again, it's going to depend on the casino and that sort of stuff. Some casinos really bother you or say, no bet, sir, that kind of thing. If you just stand there. So, there's a lot of things you can do. You can do a Dewey-Doney strategy. That's also a good time to do, some hedging type things. Maybe like just placing 5, 6, and 8 in a field bet. One or two hits and then take it all down. That sort of thing.
Yeah. Awesome.
Or just go with the old standard. Just do a pass line bet with some odds, or like the old gold touch thing with the 5 count. That's a good one. That kind of thing. Just to minimize the amount of money you put at exposure when you can tell that the game is the shooters are going to be on more of a random roll than anything else.
So it depends on my bankroll, but a lot of times I'll try to make a discrete a don't come bet. So I'll wait till something's established, do a single don't come, and just let it go. Wait and see if it resolves. So I don't really like going on the don't pass as much because it does get a little bit of attention from other players at the table. But the don't come, that seems to be a little bit more discreet. So that's my kind of fallback to have some action on the table if my bankroll is very limited.
Yeah, I'll just show you real quick. One thing you can do. This is kind of a fun one. Is you can do like a Dewey don't like this, right? And let's say that it comes back an 8 comes back. Well, great, an 8 is a good number. You just do that.
Yeah.
Or let's say it comes back as a 4.
Yeah.
Or 4, something like that. Well, you can't take this down, but you can now, you're basically hoping to hedge with maybe another come bet or something like that.
Right.
There's what's his name? The guy that does Wager Me.
Oh yeah, Jacob Wager Me this.
Yeah, he's got a bajillion great strategies out there. I highly recommend watching his stuff. And the other guy up in Oregon, Procraps.
Oh, John Procraps, right?
Yeah, John. He is constantly exploring hedging and various betting strategies, various bankrolls and this, that, and the other. I would highly recommend checking him out too.
All right, so I think we're going to wrap it up. One last question for you, Mudslide Mac. That you recently returned from a craps cruise, or a cruise that you happen to be able to play craps on. But what's next? Where are you off to next?
Well, I'm hoping to get out. I don't live that far away from Vegas, and depending on work and family commitments, I can get out there usually 2 or 3 times a year. So that's maybe my next trip would be that, and maybe another cruise. I don't know.
Yeah, awesome.
But wait. But there's a big opportunity here in California where I live. It's very possible that we may have a vote of the people here in the fall that will allow dice to determine the outcome in a craps game, whereas right now it's cards. And if that's the case, then there's Indian casinos not much more than about an hour and 15 minutes away from me. So I might start hitting that if we get lucky at the ballot box and that initiative goes through.
Well, I know exactly what you're talking about. I live close to Oklahoma, and they went through this about 3 years ago. Fortunately, it did pass in Oklahoma, so we do have real craps and real roulette. And I hope that happens for everybody out there in California. It'll change the game. It will change the game for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so Mudslide Mac, thank you so much for spending this last hour or so with us, telling us a little bit about your craps journey and about your own craps channel. So again, I really appreciate you coming on. Any final thoughts for the audience before we let you go?
Well, David, I would say first of all, it's been absolutely a pleasure and an honor to be on your show. You have a great show that provides a lot of very interesting and useful insight for folks, and I'm just very very pleased to have been a small part of it. Insights for the folks out there, I would say, if dice control and dice setting is something that looks interesting to you, but you have to put time into it. It has to become a bit of an obsession, a little bit more than just read a book or two, or try figure out a couple of sets. You do have to become a student of it, and you do have to put some time and practice into it. I equate it to like golf. If you are just somebody that goes and plays golf once or twice a year, and you never pick up a club in between those times, you're never going to be a particularly good golfer. So if you want to be a good dice setting, crap shooting guy or person, you've got to put some time into it. You've got to learn about it, read about it, and once you get to a certain point, definitely spend a little bit of money and get a lesson from a pro.
Yeah, very good. All right, Mudslide Mac, thank you again for coming on the show. If you haven't seen his YouTube channel, please go out there. The links will be below, and take a look and see what he's got out there. It will help you with your game, I promise you that. All right, everybody, thank you very much for tuning in tonight. Again, that's Season 3, Episode number 1 in the can. Look forward to the next show. We'll see you later.